How much time did you spend last week just in meetings? Maybe it was a lot. Now multiply that for 52, that is a number of weeks in a year, and try to think about how long have you been in meetings for a whole year? Well, we have this number and it's impressive. For the average knowledge worker, the number reaches 392 hours a year. It's an average of almost 10 full work weeks just in meetings. That is impressive, right? That is impressive in so many ways, and it sparks so many things for us to discuss here. This is a report that came from Flowtrace, and they did this analysis with in many different countries with more than 1.3 million meetings and 1.7 million hours of meeting time analyzed. And the result was that impressive number 392 hours in meetings in a whole year, which is equivalent for saying that an average worker in the knowledge area, like IT, for example, they spend 10 weeks of their entire year just doing meetings. Very relevant data because connected to that, Atlassian served 5,000 knowledge workers across 4 continents, and they found out that 72% of the meetings those people engaged was completely ineffective. It was completely not completely unuseful for them, and completely, in their perspective, according to the word they said here, a complete waste of their time. So with that, what you're basically saying from this data and from the report is that meetings are being a big thing in the calendar of the normal and average knowledge worker nowadays. But are we doing something to change that, or at least make meetings a good thing if we're having so many of them? Well, it seems that actually this is not going to the right direction. Another report from Microsoft Work Trend Index found that the number of weekly meetings has multiplied in 3 times since the beginning of the year. So from January to now, May, the number of meetings in general around the United States in this specific research was multiplied by 3. So the number is increasing over time. And what I mean is a normal week calendar looks like full of meetings for a normal worker. So this is quite impressive data, but the main question is, of course, what is the balance here that we should be trying to find? If you are in a leadership and management position and you can influence on that, of course, the question is not how to stop having meetings, but first of all, what is the problem in regards to the meetings that we already have? You know, if we stop having meetings and putting people together to talk, you are probably going to create other problems. An email thread with like tons of emails and people asking questions that could be, solved in a 10 minutes call is not effective as well. So the question is, what is the balance? But the problem is that in general, according to this report from Microsoft Trend Index, companies are not even discussing this internally. So back to what I was saying, if you are a manager, a leader, someone who can influence, how can you start at least discussing this in your company? Because just the fact that you are bringing the problem for discussion and trying to understand what can be done better, it's already a way to improve and do things better. You know, when you have a problem, or you maybe have a problem, just the fact that you are bringing light into that is already a way to start solving it. So I want to invite you, leader, invite you, manager, hearing this and thinking what can be done differently, to reflect how your company can at least to start some program to make sure that the meetings that you have are more effective, and what effective looks like. Because in many different companies that will be very, very different. Maybe effective is like 10 minutes call with very specific people. Maybe effective is like one single meeting with more people and broader coverage. So I don't know, but you should be discussing the problem. And then the question that I also want to raise to you who engage in so many meetings recently is like, do a kind of analysis of your own time. Do that for minimal 1 week, maximum two, and try to compare. Okay, every single meeting you join, you take a note. If you consider that that meeting was useful and productive for your work, or if it was a waste of your time, try to compile that data and discuss in your team or maybe with your manager, your team lead, about the data that you brought, about how your time is being maybe wasted by some bad meetings, and maybe for the meetings that you think were effective, what differently happened in those meetings, what was the different ways of having that meeting that you consider that should be repeated and that we should do more in the company. Because if that is not coming from the leadership, that's kind of discussion maybe can start with you, and in the end is your time. It's your time because I've been talking about it, and I'm very careful when I say this because it's just an opinion. I don't have data to prove, but we see that the number of people getting sick with burnout is increasing so much over the previous few years. And at the same time, we have data saying that we have this massive problems with meetings, with more uh, bigger expectations on people to reply faster to messages, to emails, and this kind of thing that you should be always on. And why I'm careful when I bring this opinion, because there is no correlation between this data directly proved. So just the fact that you have two datas here and you put that to, you put light on them, it doesn't mean they are connected. With that said, I really think that it could have a strong correlation here. Because the more we work, the more you are always available, the more you are changing the context so frequently in meetings, the less your brain is used in the way it should be used. And you can read if you want about neuroscience, but it's not that hard to understand that your brain was not made to change the context every 30 minutes to a new topic, to a different kind of resolution, and in the end of the day still work in between all those things and concentrate and do some deep work. So Cal Newport and many other research, even the book about flow from Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, they already mentioned that the brain is supposed to work in a way that all those interruptions are completely the opposite from what is expected from the brain of a knowledge worker. So the reflection too is that in the end, thinking about having good and bad meetings, it's a way of being careful actually with your mental health. And with that, I want to invite you to at least reflect how are your meetings going on, and let me know in the comments if you see something connected to what I'm saying here in your company and your team.